Loot Radio. Epic Loot Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Epic Loot Radio. Brian and Kirk with What's New Video Games joining you this week to talk about the state of Silent Hill horror games as we prepare for a spooky Halloween. And it seems like our special pumpkin background got a little change during the intro. So
we had everything set up. Yeah,
be sure to smash like for pumpkins. That's what the season is all about. And we're going to be talking about like what we've been playing, what's been going on within the latest gaming news. Obviously, I think Alan Wake 2 has been a massive success. Lots of people excited about that game. And we're going to check in with Kirk on everything that he's excited about, especially with the season. We've got Silent Hill remastered coming back. We got just the concept of Konami as a video game discussion in and of itself.
They make games again. What?
Do they? Kind of.
Hey, that's valid. That's very valid, Brian. I understand your skepticism. That Metal Gear Solid remaster collection.
Let's just take off a name. Yeah. Like, are you kidding me? Like, why do that one? Like, that just seems like such a a divorced couple. And then it's like not going to acknowledge that, like, hey, your father is here. It's like, oh man.
Well, okay, so I assume that you're talking about not including Guns of the I should know that of the Patriots, Metal Gear Solid 4 on that remaster collection, which
not just the name, but they kept Kojima's name off of the.
You were talking about the new one, one. They just came out with the remaster of 1, 2, and 3. Mm-hmm. And the big news surrounding that is that it's only 720p, which is like, why would anyone buy that? Like people are having to mod it for it to run in 1080, beyond P. Yeah. Thankfully, it's 60 frames. Like, for God's sake, give us something. But yeah, I mean, it's basically like a Switch port, but everywhere. And it's not good. But yeah, the new one, that's a discussion for a different day. I'm just excited that game is going to exist and people are going to be able to play that game in some form or fashion. Every single day that passes that Kojima isn't a part of Konami and the Silent Hill game with Norman Reedus didn't get made.
Oh, I know. What a tragedy.
My heart pains a little bit, but we got Death Stranding, which, say what you want about the gameplay of that game, the world of that and the lore of that is just insane. And we got to see like what it looks like when his creative juices are flowing completely freely on the high end. And hey, we're gonna get a second game in that universe, and I'm sure he's gonna up the ante. So that game even has some horror themes to it with the sort of the other side and the creatures of death and sort of thing. But yeah, I'm excited for that. That'll come.
I heard the music in that, and the sound design of that game.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. There's no equal.
The game is not for everyone. It's very much like a. I told my engineer friends to check it out because very much like a point to point. Like, oh, I got to get over that giant chasm or this river, or it's raining, it's hailing basically, and I can't just go across this giant field. I've got to figure out something. It's definitely like a problem solving, get from here to here, geographical transporting type game, which is like, we don't see that a lot, and that's probably not everybody's cup of tea. So,
and that's where it's like, oh man, I feel like we've seen, oddly enough, within the industry, just like a fear of risk, and the fact that they could come out and make something like that isn't like, oh, a first-person shooter that it checks all these boxes so that it can get these big sales. I think that's a significant improvement. And that's where it's like, I want to champion people who are taking risks and doing things that are ultimately like, I hope they pan out, but you never know they do. One of my biggest gripes from gamers is like, just make it good. Just make it good game.
What's it so hard? to make a good game. Just make Starfield 10 out of 10. What are you doing?
Just come on.
Just make it good.
Did you see the article by Paul Tassi just about Starfield? Like they posted this morning.
No, not this morning. No,
he's like the numbers keep going up. Like the game in and of itself, for as much as some people on the internet like to dog on it, it's like no, Starfield just has a presence. It has this like
moment in time for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and then with like official mod support and DLC, like I think Starfield's going to be one of those games that like here in 5 years, 6 years, we're like, yeah, have you played the new like this crazy mod in Starfield that does different things? So let's jump into our first subject, which is just kind of what we've been playing.
But Ginger Prime's got to talk about Starfield at some point. Like he's
every
quoted.
a good game. There's definitely things that like when you finish it and you play the whole thing, you're like, oh man, I wish that they did this thing differently, or they handled this thing a little bit better. For sure. Because the other thing, like I'll start with what I've been playing, is I stepped into Star Citizen for the first time. I bought the game for the summer and I decided to step into it. And like there's a clip I posted up on Twitter about the moment where I fell in love with this game, and it's like I'm trying to land this ship, and it's like the game isn't holding your hand. It's not going to apologize for anything, and I land the ship successfully, and I feel so proud. And then I get out of my chair and I go to exit the ship, but I landed it on top of the hangar and not on the bottom, and so then gravity kicks in and I fall to my death. And I was like, that was so freaking perfect. But one of the things that obviously I think Star Citizen does that Starfield does not is there's no loading. Like it's just I just jump into the star system.
Well, there better not be for like $600 million or whatever that game costs.
Yeah, like at that point for sure. So the I'm just like I can see people's critique on Starfield and the loading, but it's like at the end of the day, like it does this. Like I felt like I enjoyed the RPG in and of itself, so it comes up from time to time. What I played some other things, but let's go to you. What games are you playing right now in your wheelhouse?
So I actually just went on a half-week long work conference trip, work to game, #work to game.
That's right.
Work conference trip to Savannah, Georgia. And thoroughly enjoyed that. That is a very a city with rich history, and it's pretty good places to frequent if you want to get a beer or something, have a good time, some live music. So it's not the worst place to take a conference, after you get off at 5. So my gaming has been a little bit limited this week, but I actually recently played this game from like 5 years ago. I think it has been 5 years. It's called Vampire. It's from Don't Nod Entertainment.
Okay.
And it's sort of a Souls-like before those like really started blowing up. And this was just one of those games that I just like, it's AA. I think I got it with like Games with Gold, or I might have dropped. I think you know what it was. I think it was on sale for $10. They always get me, Brian. Xbox always gets me with those sales. And I look through it, and it's like,
same thing with Steam, dude.
$9.99, $8.99. I'm like,
I'd be a fool not to buy
money. Like $8.99 isn't money for a video game. Like they might as well have given it to me for free. That's gamer math. You see all the stuff online about girl math. That's gamer math. $8.99, $7.99. That doesn't count. It's
going to save me money because I'm not going to go out and have to go see a movie. I'm not going to what? This is pro budgeting right now.
Yeah,
gamer math,
dude. That's a real thing.
So funny.
So I gamer mathed my way into buying that, 3 or 4 years ago, and finally I was like, okay, well, this one's been in the backlog so long. I was like, I need to get to Callisto Protocol. Dead Space is coming to Game Pass, next week or whatever. This was last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh man, all right, let's hit this. Let's knock it out. Let's see what it is. It's probably not going to be an amazing experience because I waited so long. That's kind of the thing now. Like if you wait too long to play these games, like they feel like outdated with the leaps forward that we're making in technology. Thankfully, Xbox is sort of doing their part to circumvent that by I got to play this game with auto HDR on my Series X. Like that, that probably makes a little bit of a difference in terms of like how I'm experiencing it now. So I started this thing up thinking that it's going to be like a bumpy ride. Dude, when I tell you I played this game for 8 to 10 hours, I don't even know how long I played this game because it was on a Friday or something. So I didn't have work the next day. I was obsessed with this 5-year-old game because what it does, and this is old news for anybody that's already played this game or knows anything about it. What it does is it sort of does the sort of, you see it in Starfield, but the Bethesda like, okay, I'm going to go into this area, this town or whatever, and like go into the pub and whatever. And there's like 3 different people that I can talk to, and they each have they have a deal. Like I can talk to them and like, yes, I've been the bartender here for like however long or whatever. And it's like, well, as a matter of fact, there's a bunch of my stock is over down on the wharf. If you want to go get that for me or what, like they're quest givers. They've got a whole deal. You can sort of figure out like what's going on, like who they have relationships with. They're in the town. Oh, my wife does this. My daughter is here. That sort of thing. Like there's a whole lot going on. And so it turns out that the more that you learn about them, the more that you converse with them and sort of get them to confide in you and things like that, and that you do their quests that they give you, there's like a little experience bar that they have that like goes up. And you can like cap that out. Like when you've basically done like if there's Brian the bartender, you've done Brian the bartender 100%. Like you've done everything Brian's got going on. You've talked to him about everything, all of his dialogue trees.
All of my needs have been met. I will now retire in peace and prosperity.
So the crazy thing about that is like once you cap out Brian the bartender, you can just take him behind in like some alley and eat him.
What?
You're a vampire.
Oh, you're a vampire. Okay.
You're a vampire. And so, but like you've like learned his life story, that he has a wife and a daughter, and he's like, yeah, I just run a modest pub because I feel like the people of this town need like somewhere to get away from their troubles, what are like endearing you to this character because it's quite well written, it's well voice acted. But the thing is if you play this game on hard mode, which I would highly recommend, because a lot of the complaints when it first came out is that it didn't have any scaling difficulty, it just had a one. It just had the setting that was on. It's designed sort of like the combat is sort of like AA Souls-like energy. Like it's a little bit janky. Like you're like, oh, I thought I dodged that. Like it's kind of like that. Like a little bit like sort of where this new Lords of the Fallen is winding up. Like it's not quite right. And if you play it on hard mode, you sort of get your butt kicked in. You're not losing your experience soul style. It's not like you've got to get to point A to point B and you lose all your progression. It's just like when you run into enemies, they will kick your butt if you haven't leveled up. And the experience that the enemies give you is like nothing. Like they give you like 5 XP per enemy that you kill. Well, Brian the bartender's sitting on 4,000 XP. So that's 5 versus 4,000. So like I have to decide, am I going to be able to get through the next area? Like, okay, like, am I going to suffer through that? Because me and Brian are homeboys and like, I really don't want to take him out behind this alleyway and eat him. Or like, is Brian just going to have to take one for the team, And like, just like that whole dynamic is like so cool. Like I've never seen anything like that. So I ended up just like, this is so bad. Keep in mind, this is in a video game. So like, don't cancel me or anything. But like, there was like one, this is in London. So there was like one borough that is just like there were like some good people in there, but I swear like every third person was like a serial killer or like a drug dealer or like something bad. Like one of them was literally just like the London Strangler, basically. He had like a closet full of bodies somewhere.
That's definitely a murder method that we've seen kind of fall off in recent times. You don't hear about people getting strangled.
I have no comments on that. But so it was just like, this is like the seediest place. So I was like, all right, you guys, because what happens is you're also, it's crazy. You're also a doctor. As ironic as this is, you're a vampire who is the leading scientist on blood transfusion technology. Which is a little bit of a callback to like Bram Stoker's Dracula, because there's a lot of blood transfusion going on in that novel. So you're actually like saving them from the Spanish flu. Like you're actually like going into the towns and like helping them and like giving them medicine and stuff. But that's also because if they have like a status defect, then that bar gets like a little like cap on, like it goes like if it would be 4,000, well, Brian's only worth 2,500 while he's sick,
Yeah.
So I gotta go like heal him, so there's like this constant like almost livestock element of like, well, I've got to keep him like well and healthy So eventually I was just like, all right, this one, like, so if too many people get sick and or perish,
Mhm.
the basically the life bar of that district goes down, and
Okay.
then you just lose the whole district. Like everybody just, I don't know what happens, but basically when there's too much unhealthy people or people that are gone, or if you take out too many people,
Mhm.
it just gets wiped out. Like if it goes under 50% health, it's just like, yeah, overnight this district is just like gone. So the one that was like the lowest and also like had the axe murderers in it, I was like, all
Mhm.
right, you're the designated district that's gonna get my character through this game. I'm just gonna, just 4,000 here, 4,000 here, And then I was like, all right, everybody else is safe. I'm good for the rest of the game. Like I'll figure it out. Like we're gonna make sure that everybody. So that's how I ended up doing it, and all my friends in the other districts were safe. But yeah, I've never seen anything like that in any game since then. It kind of reminded me a little bit of like what Shadow of Mordor did with like the Nemesis system.
Oh, dude, what a great system,
Those
man.
are two. These are two systems that like were like very much pushing boundaries in terms of like what it's actually doing, like
Mhm.
the types of engagements that's giving you, and in this case, like the types of choices that you have to make after you get invested. Like it's almost like it perpetuates. It's like self-fulfilling that you're going to get more invested with this character
Mhm.
because you know in the back of your head, like when you first start talking to this character, oh, I might eat you. So it's like when you like, so then instead of just a game where you're talking to this character, it's like, don't care, give me your quest, whatever. You're from the jump, you're like evaluating, like, am I gonna eat you? Like, so like it almost like it almost like causes you to get more
As
invested
you
with this
do,
person.
you know?
It's like when like on a farm, when like the farmer's kid like gets attached to the pet pig. It's
Mhm.
like, well, the pig was always meant to be a ham. It's like it's worse like that. Like I feel like life is ironic like that. So the
Mhm.
fact that they were sort of able to capture that in game form, where you get invested in these characters because it's good voice acting, because it's good writing, and also because I'm not going to get through this game unless I start eating some people. Yeah, it's so cool, and I just mainly I couldn't put it down. It was awesome, and I was
That's
like,
awesome.
dang, dude, I can't believe games from 5 years ago are still this good. But they are. I mean, we were talking about Metal Gear Solid before.
Mhm.
Phantom Pain. I still need to finish Phantom Pain. Fantastic game, especially on Series X with all the again the preservation stuff,
I need
the
to
auto
start that
HDR
one.
and stuff.
I played
Oh,
all the
it's
Metal
so
Gears
good, dude.
except for the last one, and I was
It's
like,
so
I
good.
have no idea why." I think I was just, busy and, like, enthralled into the MMO landscape for so long that I was like,
Sorry,
"Oh,
that was way too much of a diatribe on this like 5-year-old game. But yeah,
that's
I
good."
was loving it.
So, like, the other kind of things that I just can't seem to put down right now would be Super Mario Wonder and Halo 5,
Oh
Halo
yeah.
Season 5. Halo Infinite has been good. We did that community game night, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna have to keep doing some more of those." I'm having trouble on PC. Like, I'm not having any controller, like, aim assist at all, so it's forcing me to learn keyboard and mouse, which I'm not the best at, but, it's like, yeah, and maybe that's a good thing because it's like, yeah, I can try and learn, keyboard and mouse and playing at an actual shooter where before it's always like I just kind of default to controllers because it's so much more fun. But I noticed I was like, I'm on Xbox and I'm doing great, and then I go over onto PC and I was like, I'm like the guy, like I'm just swinging wildly left and right, and I'm like,
That's
what's
odd
happening?
because I think like Call of Duty has controller aim
It
assist, like
does.
no
Like
matter
I
where
haven't
you
had
play.
problems, and I don't know if so I've been troubleshooting it, and so far have not been able to successfully.
That may have been their solution. I don't even really know if this logically makes sense, but I know that when the game launched,
Mhm.
when you did ranked, you could pick whether you wanted to
Be mixed, or you want to, yeah,
whether you wanted to play with people that had controller only if you were on
Mhm.
console, or
Yeah,
I honestly I don't even think you could pick. I think it was just like if you were on a console, it put you with controller players. And I assume because of the drop off in player count, they changed that.
Mhm.
And so there is no segmenting now. There's no sequestering at all. Everybody plays with everybody.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that has anything to do with that. Like they didn't want anybody on PC to have any advantage. I don't know. I don't know that necessarily really even makes sense still though. So that's strange. I don't know why that's like that. If you don't have aim assist on a controller on PC.
I think it's a bug because at least from everything I've discovered. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to test it out. Again, I've been just like I was like, man, this is wildly different. Where I felt like in season 4, that it was working like as intended, and it's
Mhm.
only really been in season 5 that it's hit me. So who knows? It could also be some of my PC. My PC likes to act weird from time to time, and it's like,
So
okay,
can we talk about Halo for a second? Because
okay,
God, it doesn't feel like it was. Was that really a week? No, that
it's
was
2
3
weeks,
weeks ago. That was
2-3
3
weeks
weeks
ago.
ago.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say I know it was when we didn't have a show, so
Hmm.
it wasn't last week. It was 2 weeks before that. All right.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, nailed it. Can we talk about Halo? Because I'm feeling a little negative, but like I'm not strongly opinionated. Like I'm
About the
not gonna
battle
be
pass.
I'm not gonna be very
Mhm.
assertive on this. Like I'm very much open to having my mind changed because I was right there with you, like for the announcement trailer, like getting
Mhm.
hyped, like freaking out. When I logged in and I saw that the battle pass, which is 50 tiers, is only 28 days.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking about people like you that, are playing a lot of Halo. That may be pretty much your primary game at the moment, but you have work, you have
Mhm.
6 kids, right? Is it 5 or
Yep.
6? You have
6.
6 kids,
Yeah.
a lovely wife, you got stuff going on, probably got trick or treating, definitely
Yep.
got some illnesses right now.
Dude.
So I
Yeah.
mean, 4 weeks goes by really fast.
Mhm.
And for someone like me that wants to play other games, 4 weeks goes by really
Yeah.
fast. And I just feel like I understand that fans don't want a battle pass that lasts 6 months.
Mhm.
Like we're moving in the correct direction from 6 months. We want more finite windows of content to bring on other content. We
Mhm.
don't want to have to. It's the same thing with the Destiny problem. We don't want to have to deal with the same content for an extended period of time. But I feel like limiting it to 28 days is going in the other direction. It's not necessarily providing that for players so much as, to me, it seems like a bait of, they know that nobody, unless they just have all the time in the world, is going to finish this pass. And
Mhm.
so they basically are guaranteed your $10. And I don't like that. Like, it feels very manipulative in that it seems to me like they weren't selling battle passes. They didn't sell one to me. I hadn't bought one yet because I just played them
Mhm.
when they were live and got the free stuff. And then when it was gone, I was like, well, I don't need that one. There's a new one. Just get the free stuff. And I really liked the free event passes that lasted for 1 to 2 weeks, for
Mhm.
the samurai armor, and there was like a trench warfare looking one with like a gas mask
Mhm.
that was after that. And excuse me. Um, and I think they've done away with those, so you don't get those free event things anymore. And so they're sort of replacing those, and that's what's going to come after the 28 days.
Yeah,
So
that's
rather
what
than
I'm
us
waiting to
getting
kind of
those,
see how that comes out, because of the way I read it, it sounds like if you're playing it during that time, it's free. But then if you don't finish it, then you can choose to purchase it so you have
yes,
it
which
forever.
that's all well and good, but
Mhm.
the system that we had before was a battle pass that at least lasted for 3 months, and then you simultaneously got a free battle pass to do
Mhm.
for the 1 to 2 weeks for the event. And now what they've done is they've said, okay, we're taking that 3 months, moving it down to this, and then we're going to supplement that with this, which used to be during that long time. So you had all this time to do. Now you got to do this here,
Mhm.
this here, this here. Oh, you missed this one. Oh, you better pay us money. Oh, you need one that more time for that one. You better pay us money. Like, I feel like they're trying to manipulate people into extracting that battle pass money from them so that they can have that pass outside of the 4-week window by shortening in that
Mhm.
amount of time. And that
That's a
feels very,
possibility.
very gross to me. Yeah, I don't
That's a
like that.
very big possibility, because but that's where I'm like, I don't know yet what it is, right? Like, like, how is it going to feel? And so I'm kind of waiting to see what that looks like, because I still have previous battle passes that I was planning on working on. I finished the season's 4 battle pass, and that was at 100 levels. This is being at 50, like,
Mhm.
but it's obviously then, married to that shortened time frame. And again, like, I think time's going to be the real teller. Is this something that feels better? Is this something that feels more like every month there's a new event in Halo kind of aspect where you're like, oh, or is it going to feel like, man, I'm a little bit winded, like, oh man, I can't keep up, I'm going to go ahead and skip this, I'm going to skip that one.
Yeah, I
But
just
yeah.
hope they don't lean into like pure FOMO, like just this is this month and you never
Yeah.
get it again. I mean, there's a reason. Battle passes come from Fortnite, if I'm not mistaken. Like that's where they
that's where I was introduced to them. Yeah.
And there's a reason that Fortnite battle passes last like at least 2 to 3 months.
Mhm.
I mean, that model just makes sense. I haven't really seen a battle pass before this. Now, granted, it's only 50 tiers, but I think this is experimental from 343. I've never seen a battle pass that's this short in terms of the amount of time that you're able to complete it. So we will see how it goes. I don't like it, and I wouldn't want other people to start doing it. I wouldn't want other games to start just shortening down on it, just crunching gamers, basically saying, oh, nope, you got to play our game right now. You got to play it right now, or you're going to miss the thing. Like, we already feel that pressure in like the 3-month span. And I'm concerned that, well, we made it half the length. Like now it's only 50. Well, yeah. So I get less stuff and you're making me do it in a, like it, I don't like where it's going. It makes me uncomfortable, but I also didn't buy the pass. So whatever, but I mean, it's the same, but it was the same thing with Destiny. Like I didn't like the season pass, alization, for lack of a better term, of Dark Below, House of Wolves. Like I liked that content, but it very much felt like, okay, you sold me this $60 game and then like carved out all this other stuff, and now I got to pay you like basically the price of another game for it. And then that just became the standard. Like that's just games now.
Yeah.
Back then that was experimental, and people voted with their wallets, and they voted, hey, we'll give you money if you do this. And so I'm concerned that like this could be that type of thing. So I'm not paying for it, and I'm still going to play Halo. So it's like, hey, you've got me as a player. Also, look, I'm not paying this money. Don't do this. I feel like people are going to buy the pass because they're going to get to tier 30 or whatever. And they're going to be like, oh, well, I didn't get to tier 30 for nothing. And I'm going to pay the $10 to keep using it. And so they get you. So I'm a little bit concerned with that, but it's not the worst thing in the world. It's good to see that the game is doing well regardless. And
game seems to be doing very well
either way. Yeah.
And like then we saw the custom battle royale mode that was added, and I got to play around with that a little bit, which is cool. And
I think there's several of those. Like I'm not sure if the one that I tried is the one that's blowing up, but yeah, I mean, come on, how is 343 not done it? Like
I know
they're just slow. They're just slow on this stuff. And I figured out that was because you may have already known this, but we haven't actually talked about it on anything live. But I figured out that was because like they were basically using like freelance people to work on their proprietary engine. So like that only works like basically if you have a temporary contract employee to work on your proprietary engine, then they figure out how to like work on your engine, and then you're like, okay, bye, temporary employee. So they actually brought people in to be like, here's our engine, here's how it works. We're going to keep you at least 2 years. Let's start updating and fixing this game. And apparently that's been the source of like the drastic improvement is that they're actually like,
you're just out there looking for your next job. You're like, all right, I got this one and this is going to end in here. And,
just not giving people the opportunity to really familiarize themselves with your engine that nobody else uses. If it was Unreal and you bring somebody in, they're like,
I've already worked on Unreal for years. Got it.
But cool. So actually investing in the personnel and the talent that is going to make the game better is sort of what has apparently caused this uptick, which I'm all for that. Like, come on, let's support the people that are going to support the games.
Have you had a chance to play Super Mario Wonder at all?
I mean, I just didn't want to drop the $60. I tried to see if I could like somehow use my GameStop points on it or something, and they were like, "No, you've got to renew your $25 subscription or whatever."
No.
I'm like, I've got $40 worth of points sitting on my account. Like, come on, like, no, you can't use those unless I was like, whatever, dude. So yeah, I'll probably cave at some point, but
the price won't go down, so it's not like one of the
okay. I will say, Brian, I watch the Nintendo sales as much as I possibly can, and I have probably almost like close. I don't have Yoshi's Crafted, I think, World. Is that the one on Switch? I don't have Yoshi's Crafted World because I passed on it. I should have grabbed it, but I didn't because I was like, do I really want that game? And then I was like, yes, I want every Nintendo IP on Switch. What am I doing? I passed on that one. I haven't seen it again. But like every it's like from Family Guy, the Spider-Man thing, everybody gets one. Like all the Nintendo IPs, they get at least one sale that brings it down to like $41.99. And
Yeah.
I swear to you, Brian, I watch, and I if it's Xenoblade Chronicles 3, if it's Origami King, Paper Mario, Pikmin 3, I get it. I get it for that $42, Brian. I watch and I wait and I get them. So I have pretty much every Nintendo IP, Breath of the Wild, pretty much every Nintendo IP game I've gotten for $42 digital on my Switch. I know I can get it probably for less. Well, probably not for Nintendo IP, but I know I can get it
I was
less
like,
for
you
physical,
like
but...
to find a sale on a Nintendo game is a unicorn kind of moment.
Everybody gets one.
the Mario movie came out, and I know they discounted briefly some of the Mario games, but it's like, yeah, go buy Odyssey. It's $60. Wonder in 5 years will be $60.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, yeah, so you're not ever gonna have to.
I'm gonna Discord you, Brian. I'm gonna Discord you when I get Wonder for $41.99.
Oh man, I'll be like, no, bravo. You know, by that time you'll be married with kids. So
yeah. Probably. Honestly, I think I'm just curious to see what the next Nintendo console is, and once I see it, and once I confirm, no, I'm gonna wait, or I'm gonna pass on this one, or like whatever it is, I'm like, my Switch is going to be my definitive Nintendo library. I'll probably just cash in on Tears and Wonder like right then, just for full price, like whatever. I just want to see that, what if it's a new system and I do want it and there's no backwards compatibility, like,
because if they do that, if they're like, oh, your Switch library is stuck on your Switch, your Switch
I'm like on hold on buying new Switch games. Yeah,
I'm such a Nintendo
they
fanboy
would totally do that.
They would. But I'll still give them money because I'm gonna want to play whatever Mario game they're launching with the system, or maybe they'll do Metroid Prime 4 launch. At that point,
I'm such a Nintendo secondary gamer that I think if they announce a Switch, another, let's say it's not Switch related. The worst thing would be if they call it Switch and it's not backwards compatible.
It needs to be Switch. I'm hoping they just call it Switch 2, and all right.
Let's say it's Nintendo, whatever, and has nothing to do with the Switch, and none of the games are backwards compatible. I think I would be completely happy just being like, all right, we're gonna round out that Switch collection, and that's just gonna be my Nintendo device for the next 7 or 8 years, and then we'll wait for whatever else they put out. Because
I think they would struggle. You'd have people like me, you'd have people who are excited for whatever the Nintendo game is, but just like from the Wii to the Wii U, I think if they came out with the follow-up for the Switch that didn't play the Switch games, you'd see a lot of people, because when you look at the amount of people who purchase digital based games, physical media is already going to be taken out of Walmart and Best Buy and all of those things. So it's digital is where these systems are going. All of a sudden you're people are going to be like, what? What do you mean I don't get those?
Brian, if you said the same thing about the 3DS, I would have believed you then.
Which part?
If they release a new portable handheld console and then you can't play any of your 3DS games on it, people will not be happy and it won't do
3DS
well.
to the Switch though?
Yeah. If you'd said, if they release another portable handheld console and you can't play any of your 3DS games that you bought on that, people will not be happy and it will not do well, I would have believed you. And we would have been wrong.
Oh man. Well, I wouldn't have said that about the 3DS specifically because of its form factor and how how the hell that translate into.
So you think that the Switch being more than a handheld is sort of putting it in that category?
Yeah. Now I saw some kind of news that was kind of patents that Nintendo filed about, and it looked like another dual screen setup. So it's it'd be interesting to see if they then follow that up, follow the 3DS up with another kind of just direct to handheld kind of gaming device, which honestly I wouldn't put it past them, but I am happy with the state of the Switch as well as the Switch Lite. And when it comes down to whatever the Switch 2 ends up being, I'm gonna I'm probably in, especially if they launch with a Mario game. I'm not gonna want to miss that. But we'll have to wait and see. I don't want to be rebuy my library. If my library doesn't follow me though, that's gonna feel like a real big punch in the gut.
Well, there's a lot of those games I haven't played. I just got Pikmin 4 and I haven't played Pikmin 3 yet. It's stuff like that. Nintendo is pretty much on the back burner for me. I think because I never get the games. I don't get a lot of games when they come out. Lies of P was kind of an exception for me, but streaming and making YouTube content has sort of opened up that door for me to actually get games, when they actually release and do reviews and stuff. So I'm very thankful to my audience, which is basically completely on their own allowed that to happen. So I can play a game like the Crew Motorfest or Lords of the Fallen when it comes out. It's not a usual experience for me. I don't really have, $70 5 times a month to drop on new games. So I've really that's probably the thing that I appreciate the most about making content is like that I have viewers that enable that. Like that's amazing. But yeah, like so for Nintendo, like I have this big library that I need to play, and also sort of feeling burned by the continue, like it's consistent where they withhold these properties and these titles. Like I know people that are still, I have them on GameCube, so I'm like whatever, but I know people that are still waiting for Twilight Princess and Wind Waker on Switch, and it's like they may come, they may not. Like it's just so
Wind Waker
like getting
a
new console with Nintendo is just like you're basically committing to not being able to have access to things that you previously did, but it's not like you don't. Like I can still pull out my GameCube and play those games, but it feels so much worse if you buy a $500 console and they don't put the thing on the console.
Yeah,
like that's I think the thing that hurts. So like for me, it's like I'm not going to invest $300 to $500 in this new thing if I don't know that the games that we know and love from you, Nintendo, are going to be playable on it. Like if it's going to take you 5 to 7 years to have SNES online, N64 online, to port games over from the 3DS, to port games over from the GameCube and the Wii era. Like if it's going to take you until the end of a life cycle, I'll just wait till the end of the life cycle and buy your console and then have this wealth of games, this whole library to play. I don't know that there's a good sell on day one with the consistent history that Nintendo has of restricting that access to their IP and their library that like already exists. That is the complete contrary of Xbox, which is like, yes, buy our new system. We want you to buy the Series X so you can play all these old Xbox games. You can play Psychonauts 1 in 60 frames and the graphics are better. And whatever, we want you to experience these older, Morrowind. We want you to experience that IP with up-res graphics and
we've already seen rumors of the Oblivion remaster. Yeah. So then the question I bet is if that ends up being true, or they're still working on that. Like, hey, where's Morrowind? Like I hear so many people talk about, because for me, I like Oblivion. I liked Oblivion over Skyrim, but then people were like, "Oh, Morrowind was so much better," and I was like, "Oh, okay." No, I never played that one.
I think that approach really resonates with me, and Nintendo's is just a little bit too obtuse. So I'll be kind of standing pat on Nintendo for a little bit, just figure out what they're doing, and then make an educated decision. I did the same thing with Sony, with PlayStation 5, and then right around the time of Ragnarok, I was like, all right, okay, you guys are doing all right. But I went Xbox first because all of their marketing and stuff was very much like, this is what we're doing. It's for gamers. It's about we're going to take all these games and that you already own or that you can get for like $5. We're going to make them run like they're brand new games. I was like, dude, like, come on. Like, how do I not support that as a consumer? How do I mean, that even beyond support, even beyond like voting with my wallet, just as an offering, as a value proposition, I want to experience that. Like, that's a good product that I want to have. So I was in from day one on that. Nintendo makes me feel the opposite of that.
and smart delivery and like all of it. It just is like, it just works. It works right out of the gate. And I was like, yeah, that's one of the killer features of this generation was how Xbox handled that preservation from Xbox One and then 360 and even to the original Xbox. Like, it's like, yeah, here are these games. They're digital. You got them. Oh, guess what? We're going to AI enhance them with all of these newer features so that they play like, people have even said like, the Xbox version of those games do better than these remasters that their people are launching for $50, and it's like, wait a minute, what's happening here? Like this is actually did a better job than that.
Speaking of remasters and older games, we are about 2/3 in the show now. And Brian, I want to know, well, first I want to know a little bit about the horror games that you have experienced over your sort of gaming tenure.
So yeah,
back in your heyday, maybe I'm
back in
thinking
the
maybe
heydays, right?
PlayStation 1 era, maybe before that. I don't know. But
I
yeah,
can't, honestly, I couldn't remember any like horror games that were pre PlayStation. I guess Resident Evil, like on the N64, like when
well,
we're
that's
talking
the
about
same.
like
That's the same generation, right? So
PlayStation One.
I
Yeah,
guess it really did start. I mean, unless you count Castlevania, which I wouldn't.
I wouldn't count Castlevania as a horror game,
No.
but I do love the Castlevania series, and it's been on this weird hit or miss,
Mhm.
kind of place for a little bit, but that comes back to Konami, and look what the hell are they doing right at the start of the show. Like, all right,
Yeah.
but so as far as it goes, like Resident Evil and Silent Hill were like I remember playing those games, and I remember getting to a point like when I was in my early 20s where I was like, I would buy them because I was always excited about the story and see what happened. But then I
Mhm.
usually have one of my friends play and I just watch.
Why
But
were you a
like,
little scaredy cat?
maybe I would like I have like jump scare reactions, which I guess would be really beautiful online. But I tend to now, like as a parent, like I avoid those games completely. So it's like we're talking
Okay.
about Silent Hill.
Right,
You were
because the
sending me
kids are
all
in the
the like,
room, and yeah.
well, and it ends up being like, yeah, this isn't something that like because like gore and horror like don't really scare me. It's more on the psychological
I like that
thriller
stuff
stuff,
too. Yeah.
which that's where Silent Hill real like that's where I
Oh
was like,
yeah.
if you were gonna say which is scarier, Resident Evil or Silent Hill, every
Dude,
way.
I love Silent Hill 1. I I adore Silent Hill 1. It is clunky.
Mhm.
It does not feel good like on the sticks to play at all. But like I played it in the last couple of years around this time of year on my PlayStation 3. I played the PlayStation 3 like sort of emulated
Mhm.
like $5 to $10 version that they sell of the PS1 release. That game, man, I've looked into sort of the history of that game. They sort of designed it with the intention of doing something different than I think the first Resident Evil had already come out,
Mhm.
and they
Yeah, and
wanted
it
to
had
sort of
the clunky tank controls.
yeah, they
Yeah.
wanted to take that like to the next level in terms of like they really wanted to emulate sort of what a Alfred Hitchcock film feels like for the
Mhm.
viewer when you're watching it, like sort of that angst and dread that you're experiencing, and it's like it's not abrupt or it's not like you're not getting beat over the head like sort of modern horror films often do. It's very much sort of a gradual building of anxiety and a forebodingness, and it may not even be that you're sure why you're feeling that way or like what you're afraid of, but
Mhm.
it's the atmosphere and the tone that's sort of setting up that framework for you to start feeling more and more uncomfortable. And so they targeted that with this game, the Japanese developers over at Konami with the creative direction. And I love that game because for the hardware that it's on, and even though it looks like, it looks like, a blocky, it looks like Legos
Mhm.
basically as far
Yeah.
as the graphics. Even playing it now, it holds up because the sound design is incredible.
Mhm.
The sort of little nuggets that you get through dialogue with the characters or from past scenes where he's like talking with his wife or whatever, they're oozing an intrigue. Even if the voice acting is like not that great, like it's still like what is going on here. And then like there's just parts of that game that just get under your skin,
Mhm.
like getting off an elevator onto the third floor, going out, finding the item that you need or whatever, like Resident Evil style. You get back in the elevator and there's like a basement floor now that like wasn't there before. You're like, what the? I swear that floor wasn't there before. Like
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's that game was like the original, like gets like freaks you out, like gets in your head
Mhm.
video game. And I recently played. There's a game called Dementium the Ward, which I did not know this because it just released on Switch this month, like 2 weeks ago. But I recently played a game called Dementium the Ward, which released on Switch, and it looked really, really cool. It's like first person. It looked very much like the Silent Hill 1 aesthetic. So I was like, oh man, like let's jump into this. $20 for that? Like, absolutely. It's like a wander around with your flashlight, like can't see anything or whatever. And I will say, um, for the fact that this ever ran on DS hardware, not the 3DS, mind you,
Mhm.
DS, is incredible. I can't believe it. It's insane that this thing ever ran on the DS. It must be like one of the best first person and also horror genre games ever on the Nintendo DS. That being said, however, it's just the DS game on Switch, which has just come on the eShop, and I didn't know that, and like other people probably don't know that either. But like nothing has changed here. So like there's a lot of hardware limitations that they had to skirt around that would have been impressive at that time. But it's like you can't see more than like 2 feet in front of you, and you're just like podunking around, like whatever, like moving like this, and it's like I can't see anything. I can't hold a flashlight and a gun at the same time, and like Silent Hill was a little bit like that, the first one. And like I said, I don't mind how clunky Silent Hill is.
Right.
Because of
part of that is to create that tension, though.
The way that they're
I'm trying to get away, and it's like you're trying, and it's like, oh man, it's gonna.
I was really hoping that this game, Dementium, was going to do that and was just going to be like a first-person version of that, because again, I thought it was like a new game. And it turns out the developers actually pitched it to Konami as a Silent Hill game back when it was going to be on the DS. And Konami, they actually said no. They were like, we don't want this as a Silent Hill game. Which I would say that I understand why, except I don't, because Konami can't even make good Silent Hill games since Silent Hill 4. So Konami, look in the mirror, okay? You don't need to be rejecting anybody, which is, they're not now. We can get into that, but they're going to let some people make some other games for them.
That's interesting.
This game, it just sort of like didn't have that intrigue and that atmosphere that I was really, really hoping it would have, akin to Silent Hill 1, because it just threw me into this like asylum or hospital, and without any sort of explanation of what's going on. There's clearly been some sort of like tragedy that's happened. Like there's an alarm going off. Obviously, there's going to be some monsters lurking in the dark. It felt sort of like the beginning of like Half-Life. If it just skipped the like very intriguing intro about transdimensional travel and all that stuff. Like it's just like, all right, you're just here now, and there's things that are going to attack you. And I was like, okay, like, but that's like what makes these kind of games good. Like I want to know what the stakes are. Like I want to be thinking like, what is this place? Like what's going on? So I'm like, okay, maybe it's going to build up to that. Like I'm going to get some nuggets of lore or like whatever. No, I just like walk in a door and there's like this weird cutscene starts, and this guy is like, hey, who are you? What's going on? You better get out of here. Whoa, there's a monster. And when I tell you, like, that's literally like what the cutscene was. And I'm like, oh no. Okay. So this game just isn't going to have that. Like, I'm just going to wander around in this like abandoned asylum place, and monsters are going to pump out of me, and I got to shoot them in the face. And then I just wander around some more until I find the key card to open the door. Like there was nothing additional to that. Like it was just the tasks. And it's like, it just felt like such a missed opportunity of like, no, man, you got to lay the groundwork. You got to make me feel like, I am in this world, this space. And like, that makes me anxious and that makes me uncomfortable. But also like, I can't, like, you can't look away type thing. Like I want to see what's around that corner. And instead it was just like, well, there's nothing around that corner other than just more hallways and monsters. And so there was like no stakes to it. So that was unfortunate. I didn't end up reviewing that game for that reason, because I just didn't really feel like it had a lot of depth. But
nothing to unpack with that game. Have you ever played like the GameCube horror game Eternal Darkness?
I'm very aware of it, but no, I have not played it.
That's one of the things that it's like I really am. It's always been a bummer that we never saw any additional follow-up, and I think that's usually because of Too Human, because of the studio got into that lawsuit with like Unreal back in the day, and I think that ended up just basically shutting them down. But yeah, they had Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem, and then what ultimately was like, it would mess with you, and it would like, turn off the television. It would do like, it wouldn't really turn it off, but it would act like your TV's off, or you would play around with the volume. So as your character started going more and more insane, like then and so there was always this weird balance where like, do you want to try and play this game through with as many of these like insanity debuffs on your character, or do you want to like try to continue to balance that? And I thought that was actually like something that I really appreciated and really enjoyed for what that was. But then it never had another follow-up, and that was always, I think, a big bummer. And that'd be something where like we're seeing with the State of Silent Hill, how they're doing kind of this return.
Yeah, I was gonna say Sir Rule just chimed in with Amnesia. I guess Amnesia sort of picked up the torch with that insanity mechanic. I do want to say that new game, Amnesia: The Bunker, it's supposed to be pretty good. I want to try that before the spooky season is over. But that sort of takes us into something I wanted to talk about, which is that I think over the last like 5 to 7 years, I was talking about Vampire earlier. We sort of had a renaissance of indie games, indie horror games that were very, very good. You look at like an Outlast. I'm trying to think of other examples, but I can't at the moment. Phasmophobia, I guess, is a good one. Slender, obviously, is a good one. Those are sort of the ones that sort of were bringing the genre back. And for AAA, there was like basically nothing to be found. And I guess because the indies had a lot of success, AAA started to get into the space again. And so then we had the Resident Evil remakes, which just did absolutely gangbusters, and everybody loves those. 2, 3, and 4. 3 is a little bit lackluster, but people still think that that's a very good game as far as the remake goes, and of course the originals. And then we got this year. I mean, well, before this year, we got Resident Evil Village, which was like a Game of the Year nominee, I believe. A lot of these were Game of the Year nominees. Resident Evil 2 as well. And then this year, right before this year, we got Callisto Protocol, which was good. We got Dead Space remake, which I think in any other year is approaching the Game of the Year conversation. It's not going to this year. We got Resident Evil 4, which in any other year is approaching the Game of the Year conversation. It's probably not going to this year. Yeah. And we got Alan Wake 2, which maybe will sneak in there because it's supposed to be just that good and innovative. So horror games are back as far as the AAA space goes, and that's fantastic. But for whatever reason, we've seen, I think, the quality in the indie space sort of peter out. We're not getting Alien Isolation anymore. Like, we're not getting these 8 out of 10 games. We're getting a Dementium the Ward port or a Stray Souls that came out like 3 days ago that IGN gave a 4 out of 10. It's basically like the latest Silent Hill game attempt from a non-Konami developer, and it's just a buggy mess. Like, it just can't even function. I tried playing it last night on stream. That wasn't fun, unfortunately. And so it's like, and so it's great that that we are getting these Dead Spaces and Resident Evil games, and Alan Wake is just, it sounds like it's basically just they combined Control and Alan Wake. Like, it's messing with that trippy sort of, I'm going to distort my environment so I can, now there's a door here that wasn't there before, or, I'm going to teleport somehow using light. Like, if I turn the light off, now I'm somewhere else. Or that stuff's cool, dude. Like, in Control, that was amazing. And they're implementing that stuff in more new and unique and interesting ways. But I'm sort of like lamenting the loss of my 8 out of 10 indie games, because we got Stray Souls isn't good. Ad Infinitum came out earlier this year, like a couple months ago. That's like I think it's a World War II like flashback. Basically, it's like one part I'm wandering through the mansion. It's a creepy mansion. We've all seen that game before. Second part, the protagonist has PTSD and gets transported into like World War I or World War II flashbacks. Really cool idea. Critically underperformed. Like, people just didn't think it was a very good game as far as the critical reception. So I am a little bit concerned. Like, hopefully.
How much do you think that's an impact, though, that the AAAs have actually been really performing? Because I felt like we've seen more of the rise of the indie in lieu of AAAs just playing it so safe, and not really like to where that you're like, how is this game $70? And I've seen a lot of gamers make that case. Like, this doesn't feel like a $70 game, with the exception of something like Baldur's Gate 3, where people are like, oh, this actually feels like a $70 game. Where
Liza P, baby.
Liza P, exactly. Where this year alone, like when we look at like the state of gaming, when you like, that's where I was like, how are people complaining about gaming in 2023? Because it's the internet and you can find somebody complaining about anything. But I was like, this year's just been, I think, really like high quality, big release. And so I wonder though, and this, there's no right or wrong answer, but like where indies kind of really stepped up and filled in the gap and were taking risks when the AAAs were just like they weren't even like, I felt like the super polished, right? They're like, yeah, like why is this, like this big Halo Infinite with the bad launch and all the things like that.
And then you get a Sea of Stars or a
and this year and Sea of Stars like that. I mean, that could be a game of the year contender. Like it depends on your especially within the RPG aspect.
But again, that's coming in. I get what you're saying. That's coming in for turn-based RPG in a year when Final Fantasy 16 is going more Devil May Cry. You know, so it's like I get what you're saying. Like there's a vacuum that sort of opens up, and then something fills that. Do you think that that's because there's really good indies out there that don't get recognition until that vacuum exists? Or do you think that the good game doesn't get made until the vacuum exists?
I think, that there's a timing aspect and a little bit of luck aspect, because it takes years to make games. And so you're not like, oh, there's a vacuum, because that's why you end up sometimes seeing like, here's this zombie game from this company or this pirate game.
You're 13 years late on the zombie trend. Thanks.
Right. Though. Yeah. Exactly. Like there always tends to be those kind of things, because that ends up being like, oh, we wanted to make this. And the same thing when they announced, like you had Sea of Thieves, and then they announced like a pirate game from Ubisoft that is yet to see the light of day. But it's like, oh, I was like, I guess somebody was like, I guess we're going with pirates for now, and then eventually we'll go back to vampires, and then it will eventually go to zombies. Like it's like there's these kind of beats. But I do think,
and maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's that we're getting these really good games, like we're getting a Dead Space remake and we're getting Alan Wake 2. And so when we get an Amnesia the Bunker, we're like, okay, like I wonder if the climate was still the same as it was back when Vampire and Alien Isolation came out, if we wouldn't be like, oh, this is like quite good.
How much do you think that has an impact on the fact is like you listed off a sequel and a remake, and we're praising that and we're excited about that, and then a new IP like is, especially an indie version, like no matter like if they like Alan Wake 2, like the reviews are in, people are just absolutely loving it. You're
talking about like something like Ad Infinitum or however you pronounce it, like
and so like how much like is it so that like does that indie suffer in this case because AAA is just doing so well this year?
You've got a point. Like if you don't have an IP like Alien or Texas Chainsaw Massacre is like a AA game that had some success this year. I think that that's a little bit more because I would say that the probably the indie space for horror games now is going to be that sort of asymmetrical multiplayer style, like Deceit 2, which just came out. Obviously, sort of the Dead by Daylight clones. I think that's where indie horror is going to go in terms of it being successful. But at the same time, Evil Dead shut down. So I don't know. I don't really know where indie horror goes from here. I think probably the best place that it can go, and I do want to run a little bit long because we promised them a little bit of Silent Hill discussion here. I think the best place that it can go is sort of the Silent Hill model, which we're about to see the fruits of that labor in a little bit here, in that Konami's like, hey, we don't really make these games anymore, but we see that you AA people do. Bloober Team, you've made Layers of Fear 1 and 2, and the Medium. I didn't like the Medium, but some people did. We'll just have you make our game, and we'll make it AAA. We'll give you the budget. Well, you're a AA studio. You make AA games. You want to make a AAA game for us? They're like, heck yeah, we want to make,
especially
Silent
with
Hill
a known IP.
Absolutely.
Right? Like,
So I think maybe that's the future. We've talked about consolidation before and the positives and negatives of that, like on the Xbox Activision side, and if more companies were to go that direction, what the fallout of that could be. But it is happening, whether you like it or not, and it can happen in the form of actually buying out companies, studios, and it can happen in the form of sort of utilizing them on a license, contract basis. And I prefer the latter, I think, rather than everybody gobble up the little studios. And so I'm not opposed to sort of that model of Konami saying, hey, we think that you guys have talent. You're in this space. You're making games in this genre. We have an IP that people care about, sort of what you were talking about. Can an indie game break into the space and have critical and commercial success without just complete lightning in a bottle sort of phenomenon type deal like a Phasmophobia?
Yeah.
Can that happen without sort of brand name recognition? And the answer might be no. So I definitely support brands that have IPs, you know, especially ones that are dormant, like not Resident Evil. Like Capcom, don't license out Resident Evil. Like, just make good Resident Evil games, you know, like don't diminish the quality of that brand by taking chances. But like Konami, like Silent Hill is not in the best place.
Well, Konami doesn't make it like they have this IP and then they're like, we're not really making video games. We're just focusing on these like you know, these gambling machines and things like that. Okay.
Yeah.
and then COVID hit, and then
but now they're doing crazy stuff. Like, so on Halloween, so tomorrow, I think at some point, I don't know when it is, might be midnight tonight. There's like this Android game coming out called Silent Hill Ascension. I've seen the trailers for it. It looks sort of like Until Dawn, Dark Pictures anthology type thing, but they're doing a totally new thing where everybody's just going to get on this app live, and it's like a show kind of like, but it's like video game animated. It's like a show, but then somehow people are going to input like what they want to happen.
Well, it's kind of like Twitch Plays. Like, that's how when I was reading. Yeah, and I was wondering, it's like everybody votes, and then it's like, oh,
they're just taking shots, man. Like, they're doing crazy stuff. And you know, like, I think a lot of people would like to just see them make another good Silent Hill 1, 2, or 3, but maybe they just kind of know, like, you know, I mean, if you know that you're gonna step up the bat and you're gonna swing and miss on that, like if they know they can't replicate that, sure, try new, innovative, different stuff. And if that involves indie studios, that's great. I'm a little concerned about them remaking 2 with an indie studio, because that's an established property. You were talking about Metal Gear Solid 3 remake earlier in the show. You know, you have a legacy to live up to in that case. I don't like that as much. Let these indie studios go and create their own thing, because that's what they're good at. That's like the whole ethos of indie. I don't like them just being utilized to sort of remake stuff that already happened. But I definitely would like to see more of big IPs, indie studios get a shot at like making something that falls into that world.
There could be
maybe not Dementium the word though.
Yeah, there could be a development benefit though. Let's say you gave it to the studio that made Medium, and say, hey, remake 2, but like, you know, go ahead and remake it. Like, it's not a remaster, remake 2. And so that in your engine, just like we've seen with Baldur's Gate 3, like that engine was tested and proven through other things. And then all of a sudden now you're like, oh, okay, remake that. So that way you're like, y'all are having that experience, and then also be working on, like, know that you're going to make your own as well. And so then that way it's like, okay, we've really kind of like honed it, you know, we've trained the people, and we're also building this bigger thing. That would mean that they would need to scale, and that would mean money from the publisher.
And that's what they're doing. I think they're trying to bring back this whole Silent Hill universe. They have an unannounced, or it's announced, but the real title isn't announced. Silent Hill game coming at some unknown date later, which is like an actual new entry in the IP, and we don't really know much about that beyond some abstract trailer that it had like a bunch of fungus or something. Like, we have no idea what this thing is going to be. And so I think people would be more excited about that, except they don't have anything tangible to latch on to. So this remake is going to come first. People are going to be very opinionated about it, because a lot of people have a lot of feelings about Silent Hill 2. I have a lot of feelings about Silent Hill 1. So I'm sort of eager to jump into this and be like, oh, they like modernized this classic. That's cool. I'm kind of the same about Metal Gear Solid 3. Like, same thing. Like, I'm down to play a more approachable version. I'm down to see other people have access to a more approachable version. But yeah, hopefully they don't ruin a lot of people's idea of, you know, what some people consider to be the greatest horror game of all time. You know, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see. I want to see what this thing is on tomorrow. The show game hybrid thing. That sort of reeks of like sort of the whole thing that Netflix wants to break into.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If they knock that out of the park, like, Silent Hill is going to gain an incredible amount of relevance very, very fast.
Well, just like Cyberpunk 2077 Edge Runners was the way, like, people were like, oh, this was really good, and let me go check out the game, and as well. Same thing with The Witcher, right? Like, we've seen these kind of, not necessarily was Witcher and Cyberpunk like interactive, but we've seen this kind of like other form of media consumption after the fact actually boosts the game. And that's one of the things that, like, on the reverse, one of the things that I found frustrating about the movie tie-in video games that we ended up having as a part of, like back in the early 2000s, where it's like, okay, the game's got to come out with the movie, and so the game always kind of suffered because it definitely needed more time. But I was always like, they should release.
Though. We don't get those anymore. I miss those.
Right, but I was like, they should have just said, like, release a movie tie-in game, but let it come out way after the movie, because then that would, I think, drive people to want to go see the movie. Like, you could make it say, hey, this is going to be, like, that way you can end up having a lot more freedom to really test it out. But that was a wild time, because that was something that was like, yep, you got the Wolverine. That's where, like, with Insomniac announcing that the new Wolverine is going to take place in the Spider-Man universe that they've created, I was like, oh, that's exciting to read. That will, I think, benefit the Spider-Man games, and that makes you wonder, like, will you see Spider-Man show up in the Wolverine game? Yeah,
of course, absolutely. And I don't know if you saw this, but there was an interview that, like, one of the higher ups, I want to say it's like the creative director or something at Insomniac of that game, was doing with IGN, and they were like, so we noticed that the Murdoch law offices, which of course that's Daredevil, the Murdoch law offices are vacated. They're not there anymore in Spider-Man 2. They were there in Spider-Man 1. What's going on there? And it was like an innocuous question, but the guy, like, looked at the camera and he was like, I can't answer that. So it's like, oh, we got some Daredevil something. Like he gave it up. Like, he could have just been like, oh, I'm not sure what that is, but like he got antsy though. Like, he didn't play it off very well. And so it's like, oh, there's something that, like, he's not supposed to talk about that has to do with Daredevil. So can you imagine, like, Daredevil, Wolverine, Spider-Man crossover? Oh my god.
Insomniac would be the studio for it, though. Like, that would be amazing. Like, that'd be the
we
studio
finally get our Avengers game that we deserved.
Dude, that would be awesome. That would be amazing. But I would say make that an Insomniac thing. Despite the fact that I wish the games would come everywhere, but still, like, that's the studio that I feel has really carried PlayStation this generation for what they do.
I wouldn't say carried, but they are the MVP by far and away.
I guess that's also, like, to be fair too. Like, I don't vibe with their other IPs, so it's like that's where it's like Insomniac, and then like when we look at their originals that they made, and now it's like focusing in on the licensing of with Spider-Man. It's like, it seems like a good evolution.
I think a lot of people want Ghost 2. It'll be interesting to see if we ever get an update about that. A lot of people want Ghost of Tsushima 2, and then obviously God of War knocked it out of the park. So there's not really much else for them to do. I mean, they just keep delivering banger after banger. But yeah, I think that's the next one is Ghost of Tsushima 2, and then they kind of screwed the pooch on this Last of Us thing, trying to go live service. So it'll be interesting to see where they can go.
And you see the rumors, like, they're scaling back on their live service ambitions.
I sure hope so. I sure hope that's the case, because we got too many of these. Like, just make the ones that are already out there good.
Yeah,
just make Halo good. Just make Apex better. Like, the finals needs to be the last one. Like, no more. We're fine. Thank you.
It'd be interesting to see where Marathon falls into play, though, because it's like,
and Suicide Squad. That's gonna be
that's next year.
I can't wait to see, like, what the critical conversation around that game is, because
they've delayed, which is in and of itself, like, it's like, let them like take their time and try to release it.
I still think people are gonna hate it. I think people are gonna hate that game, dude.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to watch and see for sure.
Yeah.
Kirk, where can people find you, dude?
They can find me on YouTube at What's New Video Games. Make sure that you search for channels specifically, because otherwise you're not going to find me. Or type in Wildcard Football Review or NHL 24 Review, because those videos have gotten a lot of attention because I worked very hard on those. And you can also find me at twitch.tv/KirkTheGamer. Yeah, thanks again for having me, as always, Brian. I really enjoy doing the Work to Game content, and it's one of the most fun parts of my week. Can't wait to get back on some of these horror games that we talked about. I am interested to see what that Silent Hill thing is like.
You're gonna have to let me know how that plays out, because like when it comes to the content of the house, like, I think Mario Wonder is gonna win tomorrow and the next
dude
day after
as a closing off point, I believe 100%. I believe that if Tears of the Kingdom had been delayed until next year, Super Mario Wonder would be the 2023 game of the year. How do you feel?
I would so I was saying like with Starfield was my personal game of the year, but I was holding out reservations for Mario Wonder, and this gives me such a Super Mario World vibe that it makes me like just absolutely fall in love. Now I haven't finished the game, and the question ends up like I'm wondering is like what else is there, right? Because it's like typically like Mario World had all these secrets, and then like I remember just like heck back in the summers during college, me and my sister decided to hook up the old SNES and just 100% Mario, and that's what we did one summer. It was like, yeah, it was a game that just stays around. And Starfield, I think, has the same power. I think Wonder does. And the question will be, like you said earlier in the show, will we see it allude to, like that support for Switch 2? And I think that's going to be something that will help, because if it does, all of a sudden you pick up a Switch 2 and it's like, hey, here's this Mario game that everybody really enjoyed, and it's a lot of fun. Thank you to Sir Rule for the Prime sub over on Twitch, by the way.
All the viewers are coming in right now. We're done, guys.
We'll be back here.
Watch it on YouTube. Is it going to be on Word to Game or
Word to Game? That's
Prime.
Word to Game.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah, and Kirk's contact information is in the description of this video as well. So be sure to go and follow him and follow his reviews as well. But guys, we love you. Thanks for being here, and whether you showed up for the whole show or at the end of the show.
We appreciate everybody.
We appreciate it. So we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll be covering what's new in video games, news, and so much more. So till then.
Epic Loot Radio. Epic Loot Radio.